So welcome everybody this evening. I'm going to go ahead and get started so we stay on time. It's just a minute after 6 o'clock, and I know some other folks will probably be joining us as we get going. So I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Jeanette Delaney. I am the Senior Assistant Director for Undergraduate Admissions here at Canisius College. We will be joined on the Q&A by our Director, Lindsay Miller. So if at any point you have questions as I'm going through these PowerPoint slides, talking a little bit about getting started with the college search, please don't hesitate to post your questions. She's going to be answering throughout the whole session, and I welcome the engagement. I often tell families, if you have that question, there's usually somebody else in the audience that might have that question too. So it's going to be helpful to them. So let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, welcome everybody. These are some of the topics I'm going to be covering today. When we talk about the college search process, I do have to say it is such a detail-oriented process that I want everybody to know that I'm doing a bit of an overview for all of these subject areas. But at any point, if you find that you want some more details, more than maybe the questions you're posting, we can always connect at a later date. But these are going to be the topics that I'm going to be covering, and each one has its own little bit of a highlight. This is a timeline that we use here at Canisius to help our students and their families stay on point throughout the senior year. You're going to find that sometimes there's points throughout the process that you may have to shift a little bit. For example, right with the first slide, when we look at September, it's a great time to be getting your application into colleges, but some of you might be at the point where you haven't even looked at applications yet, and that's absolutely okay. I'm going to jump ahead just real quick to, if you look at the middle section, November 1st is the date for those of you who are a little bit newer to the application process that I want you to keep in mind. That's one of the first deadlines that you're going to see as you dive into the college search process that you need to be aware of when it comes to college application. So next, a big date that's coming up here just around the corner in a few short weeks is the opening of our FAFSA application for 2020-2022 school year. I encourage every family to file the FAFSA. And I'm going to circle back around shortly in regards to some details about filing the FAFSA as well. But it's going to be open here in a short 2 weeks. So as you're working on those two items, you should also be checking out some of your favorite colleges' websites, getting ready and looking at visit options. A really popular visit option when you're in the fall is fall open houses. Every school is approaching fall open houses a little bit differently now. Some are virtual, some are actually going to be on campus. So stay tuned and make sure you're checking your school websites often, see what their visit options are. I mentioned the November 1st date. This is going to be an early action or an early decision date for applicants that are ready. Now, it's okay if you don't have your application ready by November 1st. Why? Because a lot of colleges move into what's called rolling admissions. And that just simply means that we're going to accept applications all the way up into typically the start of our semester. Now, what's the difference, you might be asking yourself? The big difference is that our applicants who have applied and completed their application by November 1st are often going to get their decisions a bit earlier. And for us at Canisius, as you kind of scroll to the end of that middle column, middle row, you're going to find that that's typically the timeline, early December, that we start sending out our first round of admissions decision letters. Now, Canisius is great in the sense that we also include, for those early FAFSA filers, that October 1st date, we include our financial aid award letter, that big old breakdown that shows you what your cost is and all of those discounts like merit scholarships, grants, federal and state aid, and so forth. Now, as we get a little bit later into December, you might see some other packages coming from other colleges. So stay tuned and make sure you're doing a comparison and opening up your mail. Do not discard the college mail. Make sure you open every piece. You don't want to miss an important document. Now, as we go a little bit further, we get into the springtime. So in springtime, you're going to see different types of events and visit opportunities popping up across college websites. These are going to be some things that might be a major specific night or maybe an accepted students day. Again, they're probably going to look a little different than past years for those families who have done this before. They might be virtual or they might be physically on campus. And then of course, that big old May 1st date. This is the National Deposit Day for many colleges across the US. and for Canisius too. Now let me dive in a little bit to some details that you see in this timeline. So what kind of colleges are out there is an important part for the early onlookers, those of you who might be a little hesitant about what college is perfect for you. These are some questions that you can be asking yourself. Do you want a private college or a public college? What is liberal arts college? What's the difference between a university and a traditional college? Technical and trade schools, Ivy Leagues, and highly selective schools are a different thing. And then your community college or junior college. Now, you may find yourself applying to a number of different colleges that cross all of these different areas. Some might be private, and they also might be a liberal arts college, like us here at Canisius. And that's okay. But let's talk a little bit about what these differences are. So a big difference between private and public college is how they're funded. A private college tends to be funded by tuition, fundraising, and donations, whereas a public college tends to be funded a little bit more by taxpayers and your tuition. So how do you differentiate between the two? Maybe the size of the institutions, the setting. You might find a public college might be located more in a setting where it's a high population. You might also find that a public college is going to be a college that might have focused outcomes, such as maybe a trade. And that's what is in common with a community college and a junior college. They often are also public colleges. Now, Canisius is a liberal arts college, as I noted. And as a liberal arts college, we have well-rounded students graduating from Canisius every year. And what does that mean? It means that you can come to Canisius and you might be a business major, but you're still going to take courses in the humanities, the arts, the history, and the sciences, because it's going to make sure that you're covering a little bit of everything. You're going to know how to wow people on an interview with not only just your skill set, but also knowing how to just be personable. Looking a little bit further, you might be having that reach school. It could be an Ivy League or a highly selective school, and that's awesome. These are definitely highly selective schools, both of them, and they do tend to have a little bit lower acceptance rate. An Ivy League tends to be about a 10% acceptance rate. So definitely keep that in mind, but know that they're a much more competitive institution. It's important to think about different types of schools. Community colleges are also a great option for other students. You're going to find a community college that differs in a way from all of these other colleges above it because they are accepting of any student based on their academic background. You're going to find a community college is also going to be a school that is very commonly popular in the trades. It's also going to give out two-year degree programs. So when you think about a two-year degree program, it's great because it means that you may then look to a four-year school when you're done. We have a lot of really great relationships with community colleges, those four-year colleges like Canisius. Sometimes we even have what's called agreements to help students transition seamlessly after 2 years. So enough about different types of colleges. Let's dig into some other areas. What about when you're looking for your college, taking into consideration location? Colleges across America are posted up all over, whether it's out in the country, whether it's in the heart of a city, or whether it's even a military campus. Things to think about when you think about your location is definitely, what do you want to be in? Are you comfortable with any one of these areas? Great, that's absolutely okay if you are. But maybe you're thinking, I really don't want to be in the country. I want to be in the middle of the happening, the buzz. I want to make sure that I have a lot of internship opportunities, which might be what an urban campus gives you a little bit more edge to. You may also find that you're choosing colleges not so much based on their location as far as urban or rural, but maybe the distance from home. You may think with everything going on right now in the last 6 months, staying close to home isn't quite such a bad idea. But then again, you might also want to be thinking, I'm going to get further away. So ask yourself that question. Do I want to be close to home? Do I want to stay a little bit further away? That's something that is an important part of your admissions decision and where you're going to apply in a very few short weeks or months. Let's talk a little bit about size. It's important to note that all those different types of colleges I mentioned can offer a lot of different sizes. So here I did a really quick breakdown about different sizes. So a small college might be anywhere from maybe even 200 students to 5,000 students. A medium college could vary from 6,000 to 14,000 students. And a large college, like those Ivy Leagues I mentioned, those are going to be your much bigger campuses, from 15, as little as 15,000 to as high as 30,000 plus. So keep in mind the size of college. Now, things that can be positive when you talk about the size of college, you might say, I want somewhere that's going to be familiar to me, like the classroom I learned in high school, because I was successful. Well, most high school students are learning a little bit in a smaller classroom, so you might focus a little bit more on the small and the medium. Other students might say, I'm up for some change. I want to look at maybe a lecture hall where I'm sitting in a room with 400 other students. You might want to look to that medium to large college then. Those are just some really small examples when you think about the size of a college. But the size of a college might also mean what type of social experiences can you have within that college. So this last column here talks a little bit more about the social side of things. Size is important, location is important, but so is that work-life balance, what you're doing inside the classroom and outside the classroom. So the social side here, I kind of highlighted just a few key points that you might want to be thinking about in that college search. The questions you want to ask yourself. Do I ever want to study abroad someday? You know, COVID is going to come to an end. So studying abroad might sound pretty good. Make sure you're looking at a college, if that's the case, that has those opportunities, because not every school has it. Service learning. This is something that's really common with us here at Canisius. Being a faith-based institution, service learning is a big part of our population and how our students experience our faith. So with that, service learning is a cool way to connect with the community, but also through your classroom. Clubs. A lot of students are always involved in clubs. It's a great way to strengthen that college application and make sure you're a strong applicant. But don't think that you have to leave those clubs behind when you graduate. If, say, you're in varsity club because you're an athlete, you're going to find a club for that in college. Say you want to you're doing student council right now, well, guess what? Student government is the collegiate version of that. Sports, you may go on to be an NCAA athlete at the Division 1, 2, or 3 level, but say you just want to be in clubs or intramurals. Not all colleges offer those, so find and research those websites and maybe experience some visits to find out if sports are an option. Another important thing is campus traditions. Sporting events are a great example of campus traditions. Maybe you want to get to that home opener basketball game, or maybe you just want to make sure there's a tradition at the end of the semester to celebrate all your hard work. At Canisius, we do what's called Griff Fest. It's a huge carnival where all of the students in the spring semester on the last day of classes get to go and test out tons of different food trucks from around Buffalo, go on carnival rides, and just celebrate all of that hard work. These are only a very few of the social options that students should be considering. I do encourage everybody to check out social media. There's a lot happening on social media that shows you that student's perspective and the day-to-day of what it looks like to be a student on these college campuses. Check us out at Canisius too. We do Instagram, we do a little bit of Facebook for the parents out there. We have some Snapchat we're thinking about bringing back, so stay tuned. All right, so you're thinking about what you want to look for in a college. Now you got to start digging into the application process. Applications can be scary, but I want you to know that this is your time to shine. You guys have worked hard as students over the last 4 years, maybe even 5 for those of you who started a little bit of college curriculum in 8th grade, because you're out there. I know you are. So how do you truly shine? What things should you make sure colleges know about you? I start this first page out talking about how to make yourself a good applicant with academics, but just know there's more to come. So, strengths in application on the academic side. A lot of these details I've included do show on your actual transcript from high school. But what you're going to find that is some of these things you might want to highlight in maybe your college essay. Maybe you want to put them into a resume of your activities because they've been such an important part of your high school career. So things that I'm looking for often over my 15 years of reviewing applications, I look for an upward progression in a high school student. You may not have always hit a home run when you started as a freshman, but it doesn't mean you can't finish with one. So always an upward progression is a great thing for us to see. If you started out with B+ merit roll and you're ending with honor, that tells me that you're preparing for that college-ready curriculum. Things that you might have dibbled in, or maybe you took every single year, advanced placement. I like to see that a student gave it a try. Even if they didn't do them every single year, they still challenged themselves, and that's important. International baccalaureate courses. These are also known as IB. You may have taken courses or you may have taken an entirely unique curriculum throughout all of high school to get a special diploma called an IB diploma. Awesome, super challenging, great way to show off to all of us colleges. Honors courses, these are something that sometimes students take in collaboration with an AB, an IB, or maybe even just their extra elective academies like a business academy or an art academy. Honors courses show us that you're also challenging yourself. You're taking yourself to a little bit more higher curriculum, maybe some extra work in and outside the classroom, unique to those special topic areas. So let's talk about electives versus study halls. Everybody would love a study hall, but I like to see students in their junior and senior year are challenging themselves. As they start meeting their graduation requirements, I like to see that they're doing some more exploration. So if there's any juniors in the audience by chance, even though it said seniors, I know you might be out there too, make sure that you're taking some electives in that senior year. For seniors, if you still have some options for this spring, take some electives. Maybe use that as an opportunity to explore some major opportunities, which I'll get to later. All right, so let's look at 3 and 4 years of foreign language. This is a great way to one, meet your graduation requirements in high school, but two, also show us that you're maybe looking at a little bit of career exploration. You've challenged yourself again by not taking study halls and making sure that you're filling that plate full. Focus on areas too of arts, sciences, businesses. If you have a little bit of an interest of maybe being a business student, taking an intro to law class or maybe an introduction to business class is a great way for us to see that you're challenging yourself again. And you may have even done some unique things like a business academy, as I mentioned. Many of our local high schools take advantage of having so many colleges close, and they offer some unique college credit oriented courses. At Canisius, we have a couple of agreements with local high schools for business classes, math classes, even religion. Those are great ways to strengthen that resume and that application to college. All right, let's switch away from the academics here and jump a little bit more into what's happening outside the classroom. The holistic review. This is not new. We at Canisius have been doing a holistic review for a long time. Now, colleges across America have too, but I want to make sure that you guys out there know not every college does a holistic review. Some schools and colleges might be focusing more on that first slide based on academics, but it's important that you show off yourself at Canisius if we're one of your top schools. Tell us about you outside the classroom. You're more than just your grades. So what's happening outside the classroom? Your extracurricular activities, the clubs, the things that you might take leadership roles in. You might be a president, a secretary, a treasurer. Those are all great ways to show that you are getting involved outside the classroom and balancing academics at the same time. Even if you're a B student, maybe a low B student, a C student, that's okay. You're showing me that you're working on being well-rounded. That's that liberal arts college. Maybe Canisius is right for you. All right, overall positive achievement. So overall positive achievement, I kind of think about this and I think about persevering, going all the way through, not stopping out of a club or a leadership role halfway because it gets hard, but going and pushing to the end, even when it is hard. Keep being that president or keep being that treasurer, even if times get tough. Use an outlet such as maybe a supervisor of that club. Talk to them, but keep pushing through. These are great ways to be ready for that college curriculum and those college classes. And it shows me that you're ready for our coursework, even here at Canisius. Overall positive achievement. All right, identifying special interests. How do we look at you holistically through identifying special interests? That's going to be where maybe you were an art interested major here at Canisius and you took art classes. You were in an art club. Maybe that's that athletic one because you want to be in sports management. But take all these extracurriculars, these clubs and these sports and these leadership roles, your job outside of campus, your campus community work, maybe your work with your church. And I want to see you brag. I want to see you put all of these into a resume of your activities. Tell us about all your hard work these last 4 years. It might not be a resume of activities that you're looking to put together, then use that college essay as an opportunity to tell us about you, this holistic piece that I can't see on your transcript. Okay, college application process time. When do you apply is a great question. I mentioned a little bit about the early action, early decision on that first slide, November 1st. So there's a really important difference between these two things that I want you guys to all make a note of on that pen and paper there. When we talk about early action, it's actually going to be where it's non-binding. It means that you're going to get that admissions decision early from a school like Canisius. Early decision, though, if you choose early decision with a college, it means that you're legally committing to that institution when they say, yes, we want you. You can say no, that's okay. But when you get that letter and they've accepted you, you have to make that decision much sooner than May 1st. Rolling admissions, we talked a little bit about. We accept that application right up into the start of classes. All right, what about knowing if there's an application deadline? So I mentioned some deadlines already, November 1st. Next, know when the start of classes is, because that's probably the next application deadline. But some colleges may have a hard deadline as well, even if they're not early action, early decision. That should be posted right on the first page of an application as you dive in. So don't be hesitant. Make sure you read those details early on. How do you actually apply to a college? So when you talk about actually applying to college, there's two really common ways. One, the Common App, right? Perfect name. Why is it actually common though? Because when you create a profile on the Common App, that same information, name, address, mailing address, it sticks. You only have to enter it once. But after that, you're going to select individual questions unique to that college. The ones that are unique to me, a private college, or maybe unique to a SUNY college that's part of Common App. But Common App is not an application that every college uses across the US and internationally. So be cautious, it's not everybody. So if say a school doesn't have a Common App, they might have an internal institution app. So here at Canisius, we have both. So make sure that you are using one or the other. You don't have to do both applications. Other schools that you might be looking at might not have either. They might have other types of applications. So just go to their website, choose the admissions, and you'll see some application details. I'm certain of it. But these are definitely two very common formats, an internal application or a Common App. And they both are electronic. It's not so common anymore to have a printed application. But by all means, if you truly need one, just let us admissions counselors know. We'll make sure you're all set. Sorry about that. All right. What do most most colleges require for their application to be complete? These are some really common requirements, but by all means, know that other colleges might request more of you. So, college essay. The college essay is typically about 250 words. Some cautions about the college essay. Be careful if you're putting the college's name in there. Make sure you change it from college to college. Also, other things about the college essay. Be aware that some colleges let you choose your essay topic. Other schools might tell you that they want you to write about something in particular. So you may need to do more than one college essay, but make sure that you're ready. You've got a college essay, at least the foundations, and don't hesitate to have someone read it over. Proofreading is so important because when I look at a college essay, I want to know that you're ready to write at the college level. All right, transcripts, official transcripts. There's a difference between official and unofficial. When we talk about high school transcripts, I want to see them sent from your school. If they are being sent from you as a family, that's considered unofficial. So most of us want to see official transcripts. Your high school transcript should include your freshman, your sophomore, and your junior year. I also want to see your senior year schedule if possible. Sometimes if it has to be sent separate, that's okay too. Just reach out to your school counseling office and ask them to send it to us separately. Test optional. So Canisius went test optional this year, and that's a super cool thing. We kind of took into consideration all the struggles that students were having with getting access to the SAT and the ACT exam this past spring. So we wanted to make sure that you weren't at a disadvantage this year. So we're testing out test optional. But other colleges might not be in that same boat. They may be still requiring those SAT and ACT scores. So if you haven't taken that exam yet, start checking out your dates. You want to make sure you get these exams in sometime this fall. If you don't, they will be dates available in the spring. Don't worry. But I do encourage you to stick to that timeline and try to have these exams taken sooner than later. Being test optional is also going to mean that if you do submit us your high school scores, and you take your SAT or ACT exams, we can still take them into consideration. You let us know as a student if you want them to be considered. And by all means, if your SAT or ACT scores that you give us help you, we're going to make sure that we use that to your advantage. As a test optional school at Canisius this year, we're not going to use it to your disadvantage. Going a little bit further, letters of recommendation. At Canisius, we require at least 2. Some colleges might be looking that you require 3 letters of recommendation, maybe even more. My little tip over the years that I've always given families when it comes to letters of recommendation, though, are to make sure that you ask for letters to be written from different people. Don't ask 2 teachers, don't ask 2 coaches. 1 of each would be great. Maybe a school counselor would be a great representative of understanding your ability in and outside the classroom. So principals are a great one. Community leaders that you've worked with, also a great representative to write a letter of recommendation. A little tip that I encourage families to think about, though, that I did want to mention, is that sometimes when you ask for that letter of recommendation to be written, it could be written so that it can be used for a scholarship later on, too, if you're seeking outside scholarships. So maybe asking that person, hey, can you write the letter so it can cover both bases? Just something to think about. Resume of activities. I talked about that holistic process. This is the place where I want to see you put together this information. You might find on the Common App that you can include a resume of activities, but if you use an institutional app, you might need to send this in separately. Who would you typically send this to? The admissions office. This is going to be something where I want to see some dates associated with how long you've been involved in things on that brag sheet. Freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year, make sure you include it. Go back and think about what you did those years ago. Application fee. A lot of colleges have moved to being a free application. We have no application fee. It's free to apply to Canisius. Not everybody is like that, though. So make sure that you're cautious about that application and the fee that's associated with it. Some colleges might not process your application if you don't pay the application fee. This can range from $20 all the way up to a couple $100. This might be something that you might want to be selective about how many schools you're applying to. When you're thinking about how many schools to apply to, typically most students across the US are thinking about applying somewhere between 5 to 10 colleges for their freshman year. So those college fees can definitely mount up. So think about maybe a combination of free college applications as well as those that are charging a fee. All right, we've got to pay for college. So how does that happen? There's a couple things I'm going to talk about here as I switch gears a little bit from the college application and I look a little bit at financial aid. This slide particularly talks about different types of aid that students are eligible for. My next slides, don't worry, they're going to go a little bit more into federal aid and state aid. So types of aid. Merit scholarships are something that are typically granted to students based off of their cumulative GPA in high school. Some colleges might use weighted GPAs, some colleges might use unweighted GPAs. It's going to vary from college to college, so just be aware. Watch out for that. Now, when we talk about merit scholarships, our practice here is that we typically will grant a merit scholarship to any freshman student that qualifies for it. Some schools might have a limited amount of merit scholarships, so that's something else to keep in mind. When we talk about merit scholarships at Canisius as a test optional institution are going to be based on whatever the student is strongest in. It could be based on their cumulative weighted high school GPA. It could be based on the strength of their SAT or ACT test score. That's the great part about being a test optional college. When we talk about merit scholarships, these are things that you don't have to pay back. They're a scholarship. When we talk about specialized scholarships, these are something that typically are not granted from an admissions office, whereas a merit scholarship is. Specialized scholarships can be from an institution. They can be from outside of the college, such as maybe granted from your community. They can be granted from your high school, maybe wherever you as a student work, or maybe even where your parents work have some specialized scholarships that you can be applying for. So when we talk about specialized scholarships, kind of keep in mind that everybody approaches it a little bit differently. They might require recommendation letters, they might require an application, they might only want one of each. So have a little bit of stuff saved for that scholarship application aside from just your overall resume of activities. Have maybe an essay, a recommendation letter, and that resume of activities. All right, what about grants? Again, another great way to help finance college, and you don't have to pay grants back either. Grants can come from us as a college. For example, Canisius being a private institution, we do a lot of fundraising so that our students can receive either an institutional grant or an endowment scholarship. So those are great ways to think about financing college. Grants can range in funding too. A grant might be $500 or a grant could be $2,000. Shop around, make sure you know what's available to you. Look at the college's financial aid website and also reach out to your school counselors. Check out your school counselor website. A lot of times they will have grant information and scholarship information posted on those locations. Let's talk a little bit about student loans. When we talk about student loans, it can be a scary discussion. A lot of families think nowadays, I don't want to take student loans out. But there are some really healthy loans out there that do help supplement that gap between merit scholarships, grants, institutional aid, and what you still have to pay for. So student loans are definitely something that I'd encourage you to be open to. Now, there's different types of student loans. There's individual student loans that might be in the student's name, the parent's name, that are from a private lender. There's also federal student loans, as I jump into talking a little bit about financial aid, that can be granted from filing your federal application each year for aid. So keep in mind when it comes to student loans, you might want to shop around not just the federal student loans, but maybe your local credit union. Maybe you want to look a little bit at those big names that you might be familiar with, like Sallie Mae or Wells Fargo. Yes, Wells Fargo doesn't just do home mortgages, they do student loans too. Okay, federal and state aid. Let's skip ahead. Federal aid is typically granted from filing what's called the FAFSA application, free application for federal student aid. This slide is just a little bit of an overview, and so I do encourage families out there who are very new to the financial aid process to join us here at Canisius a little bit later this fall for a financial aid information session. So let's talk about getting ready for filing that FAFSA application. Things to know and things to prepare. It's not October 1st yet, and that's when this application opens up. So what can you do now to prepare? You can create your FSA ID. This is your federal signature, your electronic federal signature. This is how you sign that FAFSA application before you click submit. So go on the website, fafsa.ed.gov, right down here, highlighted in blue, and you'll see some tips about how to create your federal ID. Now, something to keep in mind, it's not just student's federal ID, it's mom or dad's ID too. So mom and dad, maybe you never went to college before or filed a FAFSA, you're gonna need to create an FSA ID as well. Help your son or daughter along the process. That's a great way to start before October 1st. And like I said, it's okay if it's not done before October 1st. Filing the actual application itself. So there's some tips here that I have a little bit further down of things you're going to want to have on hand when you actually sit down to file your actual FAFSA application. Some things that are going to help: know your social security numbers, mom, dad, and student. Have your driver's license on hand. And no worries, if you don't have your driver's license yet, it's not a problem. You can move forward without it. Tax information. So your tax information is going to be your W-2, and it's going to be based on your prior year. So as we prepare for the 2021-2022 school year, you're going to want your taxes from 2019. Now, some families might not know where they filed away in the house, and that's okay. The federal government has gotten savvy, and they do what's called the IRS retrieval tool. You should be able to access this retrieval tool when you're actually on the FAFSA application itself. It's up and going, and hopefully it's going to work really well this year for you. So this is just a start to getting into the financial aid process. Once you actually file your FAFSA, some things that you should be on the lookout for. It doesn't go right to us colleges. you're going to include possibly up to 6 colleges on that FAFSA application. The college you put in number 1 sometimes is what's sent to the state application federal site. The state application site. So keep that in mind. The number 1 school you're thinking about, make sure it's number 1 on your college list in the FAFSA application. Federal government goes through many different departments with this application for review first. A little bit of checks and balances before it gets out to us colleges. Us colleges, after about, we'll say 5 to 10 business days, should have access to it. Some colleges might have access a little bit sooner than others. Let's talk a little bit about state aid. Some colleges have state aid programs and some don't. We are fortunate, we are a New York State college at Canisius, so we work with a lot of New York State aid programs, such as TAP, Higher Education Opportunities Program, HEOP, commonly known as, maybe the TEACH grant. These are just a snapshot of some state aid programs that can help you here at Canisius. But let's focus on the most popular one. That's the TAP application. This, just like the FAFSA application, has to be filed every single year, starting as early as October 1st. I know you're sick of hearing October 1st, but it's an important date. This application, TAP, just like the FAFSA, uses your prior year tax forms. That's the 2019 tax forms. So keep in mind, 2 years ago. Now, if you're not a New York State resident, you can't file TAP. The FAFSA should have an option if you do have a state aid program after you submit it, to look up and see what your state aid program is. Perhaps you're an international student. Maybe you're from Canada, maybe you're from another country. Please know that for international students, it's going to be a little bit different. You might not be able to file a FAFSA. You might not be able to file the state aid applications. For Canadian students, we will accept your state OSAP program. And if you're from another country, we'll actually review you on a case-by-case basis. And I would have you work with our actual international counselor, Tiffany Wagner. So if you have questions and you want her contact information, just message Lindsay, or I'll have my contact information at the end so you can reach out to me and get some more details. All right, I talked quickly, but I don't want to forget. There's also that important part when you're filling out that college application is you're going to have to choose a major. So how do you prepare to selecting your major on that college application? There's a lot of tools out there, and some of your school counselors might be using some of the tools I've mentioned here in this first box. These are basically search engines. They help guide you a little bit into the career options that are out there. Guidance Direct, Choices, Career Zone, College Board. Probably some of you are getting familiar with College Board, as that's who offers the SAT exam. Or, it sounds crazy, but even the US Census. If you check out their website, you can look at what the job outlook is for a lot of areas. If you want to see what the hot and up and coming job is that they're anticipating growth in the market, US Census has got it. So even though it sounds a little bit unusual, it's still a really great resource to use when you're looking at possible job opportunities and knowing that when you graduate, there's going to be a job waiting for you. So these are just a couple tools I encourage you to check out. Some of you might find these actually posted on your guidance counseling pages on your school website. Let's skip a little bit over to parents and guidance offices. I mentioned that they're putting some of this great information on the actual school websites, but you guys are great resources to your sons and daughters. Talking about what you do day to day at your job can be really cool to them. Your sons and daughters might not know necessarily what's happening day to day, so feel free to share that story with them. Tell them about what's happening. You might also want to point out jobs and opportunities that maybe your son or your daughter aren't aware of. Maybe what aunt and uncle, grandma or grandpa did for a living. Another great way to talk and learn about job opportunities. Shadowing too is a great opportunity. I mentioned shadowing a parent, but an aunt or an uncle, maybe an older sibling that's already out there in the workforce, is also a great way to shadow and see what it is to be in the day in the life of a particular job. So how does this all relate to choosing a major? So if you're going to go out into the workforce and you're going to have that bachelor's degree, you might have a major such as business management. And it's important to make sure that you know what does a business management degree offer you and the type of jobs you can get. These tools right here are going to tell you that. And maybe shadowing a job is going to help you see that as well. With a business management degree, you might be able to get right out into the workforce working for places like Rich Products, maybe the Buffalo Bills, the Sabres here in Western New York. You might work for a law firm. It just gives you a great example that there's all kinds of different jobs out there that connect to a unique major like business management. Now, you might say, I don't want business. I like sciences, but what do I do with a science degree? So again, I reference checking out these websites, College Board, Career Zone, and Choices to see where can science degrees lead you. But one other great place to identify where to check out majors and how they relate to the job outcomes is also going to be right on our college website. Canisius.edu has a lot of that on our majors pages, and I know other colleges do too. So don't hesitate to use us colleges as a great resource too for what majors offer and the outcomes of jobs. Now, say you're a student that really is at a point where you're like, I don't know what to choose for a major. I just really haven't identified where my passion is yet. So I encourage you to start thinking about some of these questions below. What are you passionate about? What do you like to do? What are you good at? What don't you like to do? And what's your dream job? When we talk about what you're passionate about, talk to us admissions counselors. We can help you connect the pieces, and we can connect you with faculty members as well to talk about and also research a little bit more about the job opportunities connected to the majors. When we talk about identifying what you like is not necessarily what your brother likes or your best friend likes. What do you really like? Even if you need to write it down on a paper just for you to see, that's okay. But ask yourself truly, okay, I love writing. Could I make a job of it? I love working with animals. Can I make a job of it? Other things I encourage you to think about is what you don't like. Perhaps you don't like science or you don't like math. Well, if you don't like math, do not be a math teacher. Don't force yourself into doing something that you would never be happy at for the next 20 years teaching. So thinking about that is equally important. And what's your dream job? You might actually be able to do your dream job. Say someday you want to be a designer of video games. Great, come be a digital media major. You can do gaming design as a digital media major here at Canisius College. It's just a great way to show you that, yeah, your dreams can come true. Don't be too scared to ask those questions. I encourage you, you've worked hard over these last 4 years. You can get to your dream job. Okay, so say you start getting a little bit of an inkling about what you want to do. Thinking about job shadowing, not just mom and dad, but maybe your school counselor, maybe just doing an outreach to the doctor's office and saying, I'm thinking about being a doctor someday. You have a summer program that I could link up and shadow you, or maybe that I can do some community service hours, is a great way to do some exploration. Maybe an internship during the summer, or a small internship for maybe just a couple hours during your senior or junior year. Also, come shadow a college class. We do class shadowing at Canisius, typically in the spring semester. If all is going well, I think you'll still be able to shadow classes here at Canisius this spring. Now, perhaps you know what you want to be, but you want to make sure you're putting your best foot forward. Strengthen your knowledge, do those internships, make sure you're choosing classes in the sciences to support being a science major. Don't take your senior year off. Interview some professionals, make those connections. Go out there and interview somebody who maybe is doing research in the field. And at the end of the day, if you're still undecided, that is okay. Why? Because schools like Canisius, we have undecided as a major. We have 3 different types of undecided majors. And we also have a program called Pathfinders. It's where you're actually going to get a career coach on top of your academic advisor to help guide you. Make sure you're taking classes that are helping you to explore your interests. We're even going to do an interest inventory for you. We're going to help you see what you are interested in, even if you don't know it. And that's just the tip of the iceberg through our Pathfinders program. The career coach sticks with you. You're going to be working with them freshman, sophomore year, maybe even the start of junior year if you're still feeling a little uncertain. You don't have to declare till the end of your sophomore year at a school like Canisius. But our Pathfinders program helps the undecided student. If maybe you just don't know how to hit that home run yet and you haven't found that perfect major, we'll support you. Don't worry. And a school like us, we're a liberal arts college, so we have a lot of majors that offer different areas: the sciences, the histories, the math and businesses, the athletics realm, the design, the arts. That's the best part about being a liberal arts college. Okay, so if you know what you want to be, awesome. If you're still a little uncertain, you've got a couple tools to explore. Maybe you're undecided at the end of all of it, and that's okay too. The college visit. All right, guys, I'm coming to the end here. Don't worry, hang with me. This is it. College visits. There's no perfect recipe. Some students like to front load it, some students like to back load it. I think it's a perfect storm by doing both. Make a college visit in the fall as you're getting ready to submit your application, or make those visits in the fall before you submit your applications. Then, when you start getting a sense and you get those acceptance letters rolling in at home from December to March, maybe then it's time to make a second visit to those top choices, maybe the top 1, 2, or 3 colleges. But when to visit campus is when it's right for you as a student. But I encourage you to think about the different types of visits that you can do. If you look over here on my left side of the screen, on the right side of the screen, you're going to see all kinds of different visit opportunities. You'll see open house tends to be really popular in the fall. An information session tends to be a little bit more general, whereas an open house, you might be able to connect with faculty, current students, clubs and organizations, financial aid. You're going to get to meet everybody. An information session tends to be a little bit more general, where it's a tour, probably from a current student, as well as connecting with an admissions counselor, learning a little bit more in depth about our unique application process, what we have to offer as a Jesuit institution. Financial aid sessions are going to be very specialized, just like this option here, specialty major night. These are going to be where you're talking about that specific subject area. Financial aid, you might be talking about for an hour, really diving deep. Like I said, we should be having one posted here shortly for a little bit later this fall. Specialty major nights, that's going to be where you actually might be going to hear about an accounting program, maybe just the STEM majors. We offer a couple of those unique specialty major nights here at Canisius. But that's a great way to dig a little bit deeper, typically in the fall or the spring semester. Now, options a little bit later in the spring. Like I said, you might want to make 2 visits. An overnight visit is often going to be an option for you a little bit later in the senior year, typically in the spring as you're getting ready to make that final decision. An overnight can be complemented too by class shadowing. Why are those 2 things hand in hand? Because one, you can see what the dorms look like. You can stay overnight, get a feel for what that mattress feels like, what kind of happenings are going on around campus, such as maybe there's a event out in our quad. Maybe there's going to be a basketball gaming going on. Maybe it's going to be in our virtual gaming center. You name it. There's things going on all the time. And an overnight really shows you that. Shadowing a class to get you in the seat. It gets you to see what it's like to be a college student. Now, again, it looks and feels differently right now because not all colleges are doing and open to classes. We luckily are here at Canisius. Stay tuned. I think we're going to hopefully do some class shadowing this spring if all goes well. No promises, but if all goes well. And then lastly, check out the school websites. Webinars are going to be something that you can definitely take advantage to, just like this one. You might find them being about specialty majors. You might find them being about financial aid, but webinars are often what all of us colleges are using to also make sure that we're connecting with you guys as families who might not be comfortable being on campus just yet, but you might be able to take a virtual tour through a webinar. So you never know. We do those here at Canisius too. Okay, so we reviewed a little bit of a timeline. We talked about the application process. We touched base on financial aid. We gave you some tips about how to do those majors. Now, I know it's a lot and it was just a bit of an overview. I could probably talk about these things for the next 2 hours if you gave me the chance, but I know that you probably need to get going. So if you have more questions, please send them in. I see that Lindsay's been answering questions throughout this entire session. And I'm also available if more questions come up, as well as just our admissions counselors. You can see both of the informations are posted here for you to reference. So if you need some information more than what we talked about today, or you really have some unique questions or you just need a review about all of this, connect with myself or any one of the admissions counselors here, and we'll be happy to help you through the process. This is a little bit of an introduction, and it dives a little bit deeper into some things I want you to be thinking about down the road as you get further in your senior year. But at the end of the day, know that we are here for you and we're here to help you through the admissions process. It's just me on the other end of the phone. And believe me, I don't bite. I'm excited about this process. So I look forward to hearing from you, and I look forward to seeing all of your applications, hopefully within the next few weeks. Thanks, and can't wait to meet you.